Before the war, where were you from?
I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and then between my sophomore and junior year, my mom had moved me to Oldsmar, Florida, and I graduated high school in Clearwater, Florida, and then I went in the military. I went to Paris Island from Oldsmar, Florida.
How old were you when you enlisted?
When I enlisted, I actually enlisted when I was 17 years old, but I did the delayed entry program, went to boot camp when I was 18 years old, approximately 2.5 hours after graduating high school.
What made you want to enlist?
For me, there was no other option. I could not read until I was in 8th grade. And in Chicago, I was destined to have a certificate of completion instead of a high school diploma. And that's why my mom had moved. Matter of fact, she went to Oldsmar on vacation with my sister, came back 2 weeks later and said, well, we're going to go back to Florida for about a week. And it was like 2 weeks before school was supposed to start. Arrived in Florida 2 days later, and she said, oh, by the way, we just moved. You start school on Monday. Grandma and Grandpa brought I only had clothes for like a couple days, thinking it was a vacation, so I had to go 6 months without any clothes or anything, or any of my stuff until, Grandma and Grandpa brought our stuff down. And by then, I was taking regular classes, and by the time my transcripts and my records caught up to me from Chicago, they had a meeting. They're like, well, he's taking regular classes, he's doing fine. So they said, as long as I pass all my classes, regular classes, they would allow me to have a high school diploma. And when I got there, they made everyone take an ASVAB test. It was part of the requirements of being a junior, and I was a little bit rebellious, so I answered every single question A, and I got a score of less than plant life. A year later, I realized I wanted to go to college. My mom told me she never thought I'd graduate high school, so the military became the only option I would have to be able to go to college at some point. So I went to the Army recruiter. He looked at my ASVAB scores, and he looked at my history from Chicago and said, sorry, you're not good enough for the Army. And I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, and he did the same thing, and he offered to take me to McDonald's and help me fill out an application to get a job at McDonald's. So I explained to him what I had done, and I said, well, if you don't believe me, let me redo the ASVAB. And so he allowed me to redo the ASVAB, and I got a GT of a 238. 250 is a perfect score. So I went from plant life to like a score above and beyond anything that I needed to do for any job in the Marine Corps. Had to explain to a full colonel that I really took that test. And then when I got to Paris Island, they pulled me away from my unit, my platoon. I was read the riot act by a captain on what fraudulent enlistment was and how it was a federal crime punishable by 10 years in Leavenworth. And he made me take, he tried to get me to say someone else took the ASVAB. And I said, well, then give me the ASVAB again. So when we sat down there with a table very much like this, he was sitting on the other side the entire time. I redid the entire ASVAB in front of him, a captain in the Marine Corps. And I got a GT of a 238, which stood. So I could do any job I wanted in the Marine Corps.
Where did you train?
I did boot camp at Paris Island. And then from there, I went to the School of Infantry in Jacksonville, North Carolina, where I was trained as a machine gunner. Later on, I picked up the MOSs of a basic reconnaissance Marine, an 0321, and of a primary marksmanship instructor, an 8531. I also was a qualified Category 2 diver.
What specific job did you have?
My primary job my first job was that of a Marine Corps machine gunner. Mm-hmm. I started out as an A-man, where basically you carried the spare barrel, the extra parts. Yeah. Then moved up to the machine gunner, and then from there a team leader, and then eventually a squad leader. I was also a basic reconnaissance Marine for a while. As a diver, I did what we did called lockouts. Basically, you go the forward torpedo tubes of a submarine in about 50 feet of water. You climb into tubes, they flood them, you swim out the front, deploy onto a beach. And I would, towards the end of my Marine Corps career, because of injuries that I had experienced in training, I ran a hazardous waste facility, a petroleum facility, more administrative type jobs towards the end.
What rank were you?
When I left the Marine Corps, I was a sergeant, E5, and then I transferred into the Army Reserves, where I held the rank of sergeant the entire time, and I was an instructor at the United States Military Academy at West Point.
What were some of your greatest experiences while you joined as you were serving in the Marine Corps?
My most memorable moment came as we were gearing up for Desert Seal, Desert Storm, when I thought I was going to be going. And shortly after that, I was injured, and I had been a training accident for why I couldn't go. We were in our rec room, and we were watching young Hawaiians burn American flags in Waikiki. And it was a Friday afternoon, and it was about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, before we were released for liberty for the weekend. Basically, our work week is over, and we have the weekend off to go do whatever the heck we want. And what we planned to do was go down to Waikiki and beat the ever-loving crap out of those unpatriotic American citizens that were burning American flags in Waikiki. And tradition is when an officer walks in a room, you call the room to attention. We were so caught up in what we were doing that we never noticed our commanding officer walk in the room. And he listened to what we were doing and what we were planning on doing, and then all of a sudden we heard from the back of the room, "Gentlemen, always remember that democracy is tolerance to everything that you despise." And then I realized that I was in the Marine Corps for people to do things that I despise, for people to have the privilege, the right, if you will, to actually burn American flags, even though I disagreed with it. You know, and it was a very moving moment for all of us that were in that room.
Is there any certain specific events that happened that you will never forget at all?
Do I have any regrets? My biggest, Marines are geared for combat, and I am not a combat vet. But many of my fellow Marines that were in Charlie, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, did go to the Gulf. And one of which was Lance Corporal Stewart. And he at the time was one of my machine gunners, and I was a squad leader. And he died there due to a carelessness of another Marine. He actually went from one unit to another unit, and they didn't take in consideration how much time it would take to go between the two units, and challenge and passwords had changed, and the sun was starting to set. So they challenged him. He had the wrong password. He didn't take it seriously, and the next thing you know, he was shot in the head by another Marine. I personally felt very responsible for that, because I knew that's a mistake that I would not have made, but I was not there, and I personalized it to the point where when I was in Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, I dealt with that situation by the use of alcohol. And at one point, I woke up 15 miles off base in a huge pile of sand in a foreign country. And I know I went to the bathroom on a Friday. We were all drinking because it was a typhoon or a hurricane, a tornado, or not a tornado, a hurricane. And I woke up Sunday about 2 o'clock in the afternoon in this big pile of sand. And on the way back, I found my wallet and other things. And that's when I realized I had to find a better way to address that situation.
After you served, did you get married?
This is my daughter, Rachel.
Hi.
Anyhow, I came home in 1994, and I tried to put the military behind me, but I couldn't, so I joined the Army Reserve, and I got a degree in criminal justice in 1996, and I was hand-selected to go to West Point and teach. I taught tactics and troop leading procedures. And while I was there, I realized if I tried to be something I wasn't, I couldn't be successful. And I laid out my plan to have the business I have today. And I realized I loved the military. I was a military person. I had the wrong college degree. So when I came home, I told my fiance at the time, now my wife, that I was going to go back to school, get a degree in history, now have a master's degree in military history, working on a museums studies program. And my wife Susan was very supportive of it. You know, they basically, you know, she understands who I am as the core of who I am and why I do the things I do. I've been very fortunate. I have 2 kids. My son Elijah is currently at Strange, but we hopefully he'll go to Harborside, because I do a lot. Like, you know, on May 1st, you'll see me, you know, talk to the Vietnam vets. I'll bring in all the equipment that they don't have anymore to share with the guys. And I kind of figured out a different way to do things. Today I'm a military historian. I'm self-employed. Last year I was named the Home-Based Business of the Year by the United States Small Business Administration, which is my 3rd SBA award in 4 years. And I can tell you it's because I served in the military that I was able to do those things, that my time in the Marine Corps, it did not make me something that I am not. It took what I was and made it better. You know, gave me more discipline, more focus, gave me the ability to drive through when I'm so frustrated I just want to quit and pull that extra effort out of me. Maybe because one of my things I had to do was walk around a Jeep for 8.5 hours, you know, to become a reconnaissance Marine, to get into a reconnaissance unit. So
that's great. Other than the Marines gave you mental toughness, it gave you the physical toughness as well. But what else changed? What else happened after that? How did you change after you served in the Marines?
Well, I can tell you, my 3rd operation, I had 3 operations on my face. I'm very fortunate you can't see the scars. There's a poster in the Marine Corps, and it's a drill instructor, and it's pointing, and it says, if you were accused of being a good Marine, would there be enough evidence to convict you? On my 3rd operation, I almost died from the anesthesia. And I'll honestly tell you that the lights were lights that were above me. They were, you know, but I remember thinking about that poster, because at that point I had become a very cold person, a very, you know, self-focused person, and I was definitely a very good Marine. And then the poster changed, and it said, well, what if you were accused of being a good friend, a good father, a good this, a good that? And all those other questions I had to say were no. So, and I will honestly tell you that the person that I was died on that table. The person that I had become was born on that table. And now I look at the world a little bit different, a little bit more appreciative. And we, like I said, our mission is to honor the past by educating the future. Specifically to honor the names of the Marines that I know who have died in the service of our country, by ensuring that what they believed in is not forgotten by future generations. So, you know, most of who I am was because of the military service. Is why I said I'm definitely a military person. You know, they say that you can take the Marine from the Corps, but you can't take the Corps from the Marine. And I didn't understand that. I would have told you when I left the Marine Corps that was a bunch of hogwash. Today I understand just how good they are at what they do. And one of the things that I'll share with probably you guys later, and I've shared with many schools, is I talk about how I have these little round rods. And I said, these are people and these are jobs, or little brass couplings, and they fit perfectly. And I said, in the military, they square you away. So they basically take you around this and make you like a square peg. And prove that you can fit a square peg into a round hole. I said, but the problem is they can't put back the parts they took from us in the process of squaring us away. And we will always be what we are now. And that's why veterans are closer with other veterans than they are with non-veterans, because we just, you know, it's like my grandfather. He, I knew when I was younger, he hated his time in the Army, utterly hated it. But I didn't know why. And when he talked about it, he would only share the good memories. when he was older, after I was out of the Marine Corps, he told me what happened in the Aleutian Islands with the Japanese and what he was ashamed of. And I remember thinking, if he shared with me that when I was younger, I don't know if I would ever have actually gone in the military or not. And I remember thinking that, you know, I'm a sum of my world's experience. And my wife once said, I wish I could go back and change any number of the bad things you've had to experience. And I said, if you do, then you would fundamentally transform who I am today. And I had to experience all those things so I can do the things that I do today.
That's it.
Okay.